Yeah, I'd like to move to table this and then put both ad hoc committees on the agenda for the next board meeting. Is that second?
I would second it. Because I think it's a great idea. I would certainly get more information.
And then we're going to have
I think it's a great idea.
plan of action.
And then the next board meeting will have both ad hoc committees on the agenda.
And we have a plan of action about that. This is what it is how we're going to move forward. It's a great idea. Everything's a great idea. So, there you go.
All in favor of tabling for the next meeting?
Aye.
All in favor of tabling?
As long as we have a resolution, say this is what's going to happen next meeting.
I have Kristen Forrest a motion to table resolution and put all the ad hoc committees on the agenda with a plan of action at the next meeting. Or words to that effect. And that would be with all.
That's what
No
he
action.
said. There's no action.
No action.
With plan of action. Joe was in this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, was all opposed?
Aye.
No was motion.
Jamie? No. And Jim. So we can get these, the both ad hoc committees on.
Yes.
So we'll have.
And
Michael,
your expectation then would be that both of those committees would have goals and objectives for the part of that?
Right.
Okay.
We email everybody before
Yeah, yeah.
what to expect.
Actually, I'll talk to you in the next few days and we'll go ahead and flush out some goals. Okay?
Speak to Sue.
Should I?
She's, her phone number everybody has. Get it out. There we go.
The change is yours. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, is there any other new business? I will open to the public. One more time, yes? Good.
Steve Gilman, Chester Township. I have 2 questions. First one is on busing costs. I know it's that time of year. I have as a reference point Doug's survey results, utilization survey from February 28th. And one of the factors on his analysis was an administrative fee of 4%. And I was wondering, in this era of rapidly increasing fuel costs, if you're going to be able to negotiate a fixed administrative fee when you talk to Mendham and Long Valley. Because my thinking is, as fuel costs increase, how is it that the cost to administer our transportation plan increases? The other thing I would ask you to look at is you've got a chart that talks about seat capacity and average seats used, but it compares the number of seats they allocated and the number of seats utilized, but it doesn't calculate a percentage of the total ridership population. So I was wondering, for analysis purposes, if you would put that third element on the chart. And then my next question was, when do you expect to have the transportation costs from Washington Township and Mendham available for the board and for the public? Because as I recall last year when we looked at them, they became available at a meeting, and as we had questions, we were told we were getting too close to the beginning of the year, and if we didn't vote to approve those particular costs, we wouldn't have transportation for the start of the year. So I'm hoping to catch the process early enough.
Yeah. I believe that was 2 years ago that we had that problem. And what we've done since then is we have worked with the constituent districts, Mendham Township and Washington Township, to provide us with those costs as a part of the budget process, so that when we approve the budget in essence, what the board is doing is approving those jointures so that we don't run into that problem where, because we don't know what our ridership is necessarily until August. That's when the kids
Right.
start to get bus passes, and that's when the jointures usually come out, which then is just before school starts. And so we put together in our budget what our anticipated costs are based on that analysis and negotiations that we've done this past year with both Mendham and Washington Township. This past year, we were able to, scrutinize their costs and get them on the same basis of how they do their calculations, because if you recall in the past, when we looked at different factors, we couldn't seem to be able to come up with why we had a difference in cost between the two schools, or between the two suppliers. And I believe we've nailed that down fairly well.
Okay, so you feel comfortable, because what I can see, the difference between the two districts are their estimated seat capacities and the percentage of the actual ridership and the percentage of the actual ridership eligible population as a whole.
Right.
Those seem to be different formulas, and I'm wondering, we seem to be paying for more seats than we're using at West Morris Central, and can they cut some of those seat allocation projections back?
And that's the next step in our process, because this past year, we got them to at least present the cost so that we would have a true cost comparison. We had also done the survey, which I believe we're doing our third survey this month. So we would have a full year of ridership, because when we completed that survey, then we wanted to go back to both Washington Township and Mendham Township and talk to them about utilization and say, can we gain some efficiencies because of the empty seats that we have?
Right, because your budget line item that we just approved is a dollar amount. It's our spend available for transportation. It's not necessarily what we've agreed to spend, it's what we've allowed ourselves to spend.
Right, that's our budget
correct?
amount, right.
So we still have time to analyze seat capacity. If we can reduce seat capacity and increase utilization, we can increase possibly the number of buses. And another area
Decrease the number of buses.
Pardon?
You mean
We
decrease.
exactly, I'm sorry. And another area the board may possibly want to look at is the annual mileage. Because, when you do Google, the Washington Township, I believe, is 45 square miles, and the two Chesters and the two Mendhams are 55 square miles. And yet Long Valley has an annual mileage of 85,000 plus, and Mendham has annual mileage of 39,036. So if we can decrease the number of buses, possibly decrease the number of miles, we can possibly decrease the costs.
Remember Mendham High School is located in the center?
Yes, I've been told that
Mendham.
several times.
And Central is actually in, partly in Chester,
Yes.
partly in Mount Olive, and partly in Long Valley,
Mhm.
so.
I've lived here 18 years, Kristen, I do understand that. But I've also asked for 3 years for a tighter analysis of the busing costs, and in these times of tight budgets, if you look at the administrative fee, if fuel costs go up 10% or 20%, you're looking at a $2,400 to $4,800 on one school and $1,000 to $2,000 on another school, just in transportation. So, it seems to me it would make sense to have a concrete administrative fee and not a fixed percentage. Because as costs go up, the cost to administer the plans go up. Doesn't make sense to me. The other thing I wanted to address, and it was touched on briefly, was the accident in the Mendham High School parking lot last month after dismissal. It was prom weekend, and I actually had an opportunity to have a conversation with the mother of the child who was hit by the car in Mendham parking lot. And of course, you would need to validate with her, but my impression that I walked away with is that her son was struck by a student driver in Mendham parking lot, and nobody notified the school nurse. Nobody at the school called 911, and I don't know, it wasn't clear if an administrator was told that somebody was hit in the parking lot, but the student called his mother, who is a nurse, and she called 911. And she also informed me that she had sent email to the board and hasn't gotten a response. So I was wondering, what is the protocol? I'm kind of concerned if a student is hit in a parking lot. Do we have a protocol? Do we have a plan of action? Or is he just left there to lie and call his mother? What would happen if my daughter was hit in the parking lot, Anthony? Who calls the ambulance? Who gets the nurse? Who gets the principal? When are you informed? Maybe we need to look at dismissal, maybe we need to look at traffic flow. We're lucky this kid wasn't killed.
But Sue, before I comment on that, I would need some concrete information.
But
You said that it happened after school.
Yes, it was I told you about this accident. I called you that Monday and you had just heard about it.
I'm not remembering our conversation.
Right, but
But I get a accident report when the accident is reported to the administration from the nurse. There are different protocols depending on what happens, but I don't remember getting an email from anyone regarding this. You said an email to the board. Did anyone on the board get this? Do you know what time it happened?
it was after dismissal. They were all
But-
leaving after school.
But how
So,
far
in a
after
rush.
dismissal?
I would say within the 5 or 10 minutes.
So you said,
During dismissal.
During dismissal,
dismissal?
because they're all, getting into the cars to leave. He was in the east parking lot.
I may have even gotten an accident report, but you're catching me unaware of it.
Yeah, I know you didn't know that Monday because
I
I
didn't know that
called
Monday.
you, and it had happened on a
Yeah.
Thursday, and I remember being surprised that you were not aware of it. And when I had the follow-up conversation with the mother on prom day, Friday, I was really surprised that there was no methodology in place, someone to go get the nurse, to go get a teacher or an administrator, 911, irregardless of the severity of the event, 911 should have been called immediately. I just am struggling to understand how none of these events occurred.
I guess I need more information to comment on it.
And-
Now I remember you calling me about it, and there may have been something that came across my desk. I get the accident reports, but catching me at this moment, I'm just not remembering the details of it, and I don't know the time. And there is a methodology. The nurse fills out an accident report, sends it to the principal sends it to me.
And what if the nurse doesn't know? Does anyone besides the nurse
Yes, sometimes the
have
athletic
authority
trainer
to
knows.
call
Sometimes the
911?
athletic trainer sends them. So it would depend on the circumstance. If it's after school, if it's at a sporting event, an athletic trainer sends them to me. If it's during school, sometimes the nurse is not there, and there is a principal or an assistant principal who sent them to me. There are accident reports that are sent. They're generated at the school. They're reviewed by the principal. They come to my desk also. I send them back. This particular report, I'm not remembering if I had it. If you had called me beforehand and said I'd like more detail on it, I could look it up. So I'm not saying I didn't see it, I'm just saying I don't remember it. I do remember the conversation you had with me, but I don't know the detail at this moment. There is a protocol, it's in place. I have a sheaf of accident reports that come across my desk in the course of a year. They're generated by different agencies, all reviewed by the principal, all sent to my desk.
Excuse me. In this age of cell phones, I think this boy had a cell phone on it, and he called his family. Things can happen so fast with cell phones. Perhaps before anybody else could do something, the first thing the kid did was call his mother, and his mother could call somebody back. I would want somebody called right away, as quickly as possible. I wouldn't care who called. I'd rather just see that
She's
somebody's
fortunate he
called.
wasn't knocked out and he was able to make a phone call. What if he'd been passed out and couldn't make the call?
Well, unfortunately,
Right.
somebody would.
But, is it a student, they pass out at the sight of blood? I mean, think of what could have happened. We're lucky, it wasn't as bad as it was, but it could have been more.
Dr. Karen, sorry.
I thought I overheard, I don't know if it's the same incident, but a friend of my daughter's who is an EMT, a lot of these kids who want to go from pre-med become trained in EMTs, and they were right there, so sometimes, the 18-year-old hotshot, I'm going to be a doctor, like this kid, she's a great kid, and she was right there. I thought that was the same incident, so might have been.
They could have called 911 too then.
But I think they knew that he was calling, so they were, I don't know. I know there were other people that knew.
My
They
concern
claimed
is,
they knew.
we've got 400 kids cut on courtesy busing.